Hello. No reason for a jacket, just had one on, came in the house, not making a statement. Today's guest, somebody that I know a bit and someone I didn't think I ever would know, but I do know. And he's a fine fellow. We've done a few things, live things. I actually appeared on his album. He's most known as many of the voices in The Simpsons, I would say. For me, the thing I love the most is Derek Smalls in Spinal Tap, and then all the characters he's done in the other Christopher Guest films. We'll talk about all of that and more. If you know anything about comedy, you'll know I'm talking about Harry Shearer. Hey, look.
Hey, there we are. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, I'm hearing him.
Hi, Judith.
He said hi.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
At my Lord's feet.
Look at you. Look at you.
Look at my setup.
Yeah. Are those awards in the background or just sample plaques?
Well, you ask a flippant question, Harry, but I'm going to treat it with great sincerity. They are not awards. That is not to say that I don't have any awards, because I have 17, but they are over there.
And what are those behind you in the corner there?
That corner?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are nominations that I didn't win.
I see. Well, you know, it's an honor just to be almost nominated.
It's a thrill to be nominated. Thanks for doing this. Where are you?
In Santa Monica.
I like it there. I've stayed there. I had my credit card cloned once, which wasn't in the brochure, but other than that, it was lovely.
Yeah, it's not been a good summer. If I turn the camera around, you'd see it's gray and drizzly, and it's been that way almost every morning this summer.
No, really?
Yeah, and normally, at least by July, the mornings are sunny and.
Well, look. In pursuit of the title of most boring exchange ever committed to tape, let me say to you that outside my window in Twickenham, England, clear, bright blue sky.
Okay, so I can the only appropriate comment is fuck you.
Harry Shearer speaking earlier today in Santa Monica. I normally say to people, you know, where did we meet? I don't expect you, sir, to especially remember it. It was a bigger deal for me than it was for you. I think it was via our friend Alex Lowe.
Probably was, yeah.
I remember Alex saying to me, yeah, I know Harry Shearer. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I know Harry Shearer. And then somehow we got together.
That's even more boring than the weather story, though.
Let's start slow, Harry. Let's just build.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea because we're clearly not at the top.
But I think people in this age where everything is so slick, isn't it nice to see two old guys just stumbling into a conversation?
I think given the alternative, yeah, absolutely.
Now, I've written just a list of things, and I want to throw some things at you, and I want to hear your thoughts on them, okay?
Okay.
I'm just going to say some names. I'm going to start with Jack Benny.
I was besotted with radio and television entertainment when I was a child. And then at the age of 7, my ex-piano teacher had become a children's agent by some alchemy and got me an audition, which I aced. And I found myself walking into that world that I was so besotted with. I walked into being on the Jack Benny program. It was my first gig in show business. I like to say I started the business at the top and I've been working my way down ever since.
Let me give you another name, Mel Blanc.
I worked with Mel Blanc. He was a cast member. For people who don't know, he was the voice of all the Looney Tunes cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig. And he was a character actor on the Jack Benny program. So we'd sit side by side on the radio show, waiting to go up to the microphone.
Yeah.
And Mel was, Mr. Blanc was very sweet and kind to me. There was a week when it came really handy to be sitting next to him. So this is the radio show. We're all standing in the outer hallway waiting to be introduced before the show begins. And so the studio door opens and person goes in as they're introduced. And I hear Don Wilson, who is the announcer, yelling, "Harry, Harry." So I trot out on stage to the biggest laugh I've ever gotten. And I'm kind of mortified because I don't know why they're laughing. And I sit down next to Mel Blanc, and he says, puts his arm around my shoulder and says, he was calling for Mary Livingston, Jack's wife. And I was never happier to have like a father figure next to me than at that very moment, you know. The only other person I've run into of another generation that I found as easy in terms of the way he structured his show and his scene as Jack Benny is Bob Newhart.
Oh, wonderful man. I loved his friendship with Don Rickles.
Yeah, well, I got to know Rickles somewhat in his life. He was the nicest guy in the world. You saw that sort of in his. He always did a disclaimer. No, I don't mean to. You know, when he would insult people, he wanted you to know he was a nice guy. But he really was very funny. But when in private life, you know, not insulting at all. That was his act.
The kind of stuff he would do, you know, when he'd pick out the different races in the audience, the Filipino
guy, the Filipino guy over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spent 5 years in the jungle, all that stuff. Would get a hard time today. But it always struck me that what he was saying was, we are all the same. It seemed to me it's so obvious that the love, because he was looking, we're all idiots. He was essentially saying, this is life. We're doing what we can.
We're all fucked up.
It kind of breaks my heart that so many people would react in a negative way to that kind of stuff. And now I think now more than ever.
Are you attacking the kids?
The young people nowadays, they just don't, Harry, these kids these days, they got no respect for the traditions of the business, Harry. And I've seen it again and again. Okay, here's another thing. You probably don't get asked about a lot. Oscar. So who was the star of this film?
Thank you for asking. Sylvester Stallone. And so you had, the script was okay. You had this wonderful cast just banging away precisely at the tempo. And then you had this guy who would have been probably passable in a rom-com. But in a farce, it's like trying to get a pig to give milk.
Oh, I mean, I grew up, you see, it's painful for me to hear that, because as a boy, I was very fond of Mr. Stallone.
At his thing.
He wasn't doing his right. It wasn't right for him. You say about farce. I did a farce on stage. And the clinical nature of the timing, and on that production, and naming no names is not fair, because again, with this guy, it was a smaller part. The speed, the way you just go, oh, quicker, and you can hear it in your head what it needs to be and where the rhythms are. But you get to that scene and you go, for the love of God, step it up. It's like we're losing them. You can feel the audience going. It's like a medical drama, and it's starting to go beep.
Yeah, the audience is flatlining. Oh, it's cliche, and I think this is the right place to indulge in cliches. It's cliche, but it's true. There's so much music in comedy.
Yes.
And it's in terms of both rhythm and melody, and it's one reason why a lot of people in comedy play an instrument you sing. It's just they're so closely related. And farce is sort of where the rubber meets the road.
Well, if you just joined us, I'm talking to Harry Shearer, and he's just mentioned music, which strikes me as a wonderful opportunity to bring us on to perhaps one of my favorite pieces from Harry's oeuvre, the thing that I first discovered him in. I'm talking, of course, about
Jaws.
Yeah, you were great in that. You were the head in that early scene that comes out of the boat, weren't you? That one, yeah.
I did some looping for Jaws.
Now, explain what looping is.
Looping is you come in after the film is made and they need the voice on the radio that's in the background, or the TV news, or voice of the elevator lady saying, you know, fourth floor. It was scale work, which is the cheapest you can work legally if you're a union member. And what I do remember is getting these residual checks for like 5 cents, and literally, point oh five, and just taking some pleasure in the fact that it cost the studio more money to send the check than the check was worth.
So I talked about music, Spinal Tap. Obviously, you've been asked every question about Spinal Tap. Please indulge me, because it's a work of art. You're aware of the esteem, certainly amongst comedians
and musicians.
His influence is massive.
Ricky sort of admitted to Chris and me that it inspired The Office. So that's pretty good. I mentioned musicians because I think they're all pretty gobsmacked at the fact that the film rings so true. Because we didn't make up anything. It was stuff that we knew about, stuff that we'd experienced. The finding the stage thing came from my life. A friend of mine managed the Grateful Dead. I was in New York. He said, come see us at the Madison Square Garden. I walked into Madison Square Garden. It's a circular building. It had two venues at the time. The venue where the rock shows happen, and a smaller venue where other things happen. And I was just walking around in a circle looking for the bright sign. And I opened the wrong door, and I was at a light heavyweight boxing match.
So you put that on screen, and you must be aware now that any time any performer is walking backstage and is unsure, they'll say, hello Cleveland. I mean, that's quite a thing to have put out there. Let's talk about The Simpsons. Along with Tap, are those the two things you think that have given people the most pleasure? They elicit a similar devotion, don't they?
The Simpsons has stuck around long enough that it has also elicited a backlash, which I wouldn't say of Tap. Yeah, I run into people who say, isn't it time? Isn't it time?
Oh, God. What kind of person would want to say that to somebody, even if they thought it? You came on Would I Lie to You, and you did us that
was such fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody on the panel was so thrilled to have you, and was was just waiting for you to do a voice. And you just you're very good / bad, because you don't just give it away. And you gave a tiny bit of Mr. Burns.
Yes.
And there was and you could see it when you watch the recording. Are you quite protective of that? And you don't just splash it about?
I wouldn't say it's protective. I don't want to be a performing monkey.
But balance that against the pleasure you're giving somebody.
Oh, yeah. It is amazing that if I do, let's say, a couple of lines as Mr. Burns, the reaction is the same, whether it is a 5-year-old child or a 67-year-old man. It's just the eyes light up, and it's just like they're amazed.
How did you come upon the voices for your characters? Was it all instinct?
Yeah, an intuitive leap. I didn't see the drawings. We weren't shown the drawings.
Wow.
So I just saw a one-line description in the script, and I thought, let's try this. If it's right, fine, I'll do it for 33 years. If it's wrong, they'll tell me to stop. There were only 2 characters where I ran out of intuition or leaping, and they were sort of based on somebody in real life, if you think television is real life, that I'd done before. One, Reverend Lovejoy, sort of is influenced by a real life TV preacher, and Principal Skinner is based on a guy who used to be on television in this country, who wasn't the principal. I had done his voice and sort of moved it up in scale a little bit and sped him up a lot. It was a guy who used to go around the country for a news broadcast, and very slow talker, and had this avuncular kind of amusement about everything he ran into. I was always threatening to do him on Saturday Night Live. There's a man in Collins Corner, Kentucky, who just can't stand the sight of Jews. And And that the same, he just would lavish the same avuncular affection on everything. And I just did that voice and sped him up a little bit, and that's Principal Skinner.
That's a great device to say something abhorrent.
Yeah.
Listen, what a pleasure to talk to you. What a pleasure
same here.
to spend some time with you. I'm a huge fan and thrilled that I can count you as a friend. So thanks, Harry. And
thank you. And Rob, I have to say, what a pleasure to spend this time with you and not have to smell your cologne.
Bless you. Say hi to Judith, and I hope to see you very, very soon. Thanks, Harry.
Me too. Thank you. Cheers.